And we're live. Welcome back to LOOPcast. Today, joined by Erica and Josh. Happy Friday to everyone out there, especially warm welcome to everyone in the chat here. Got Susan, Martha, John. What's up, gang?
Oh, hey, guys.
Oh, my gosh, the poor gal from South Florida.
Happy Feast of St. Lucy.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Okay, so Erica and I have Viking heritage, so St. Lucy is kind of a big deal.
That's right.
You know, before they changed the calendar from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, this actually was the day of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, in which, you know, it was only natural to celebrate St. Lucy. Her name means light. You know, fiat lux, let there be light, Lucia, Lucy. And
what if the lights are coming from Jones in New Jersey?
Ah.
But so the countries that were way up in Scandinavia, they're more cognizant of the fact that there's not as much light, because they'll have, you know, summers they'll have the longest days ever, and in the winter they have the shortest day, much more so. Like my uncle in Alaska tells me people go crazy this time of year because they have so little light. They don't see the sun for like 10 minutes or whatever. So they're very aware of this. And then I heard this from Father Rocky on Relevant Radio that, of course, the calendar was different back in the time of Judea. In fact, the winter solstice then was December 25th. And so, in fact, Christ was born on the day with the least amount of light, which I think it was Brian Birch, the president here at Catholic Vote, who brought this first to my attention, that if you think about it, the day of the year where there's the most light, you have the nativity that we celebrate of John the Baptist, right? And what did he say about our Lord and Savior? May I decrease so that he may increase, right? And so John the Baptist is born on the day with the most amount of light, and every day after it's less and less and less and less and less and less until you get to our Lord and Savior and his birth, and then it's more and more and more and more and more and more. So I'm going to take the winter solstice back from these pagans. I love it. Like we're going to have this coming up here in a few days, the day of the least amount of light, and then celebrate it, you know?
I love that. That's one of my favorite, like, Catholic trivia is that John the Baptist to Jesus, the light thing. That's one of my favorite.
Not only is Brian just extra good looking and smart and intelligent.
Can you tell our annual reviews are all coming up,
annual
guys?
review next week. Brian's amazing. We love you, Brian.
But actually on St. Lucy herself, Erica, a fan.
I am a fan. I'm a fan of St. Lucy. I'm a fan of all the Virgin Martyrs because, man, like, wow.
I have a very personal story on the eyes.
Yeah, the eyes. And she's been very important in my family. We've had some eye troubles among my relatives, and so St. Lucy's a favorite. I love that she is from Syracuse, so she's like an Italian martyr, but she's become this like Northern European symbol. And of course, when I only had 3 daughters,
some Italians we like.
Yeah, the Italians are all right. They have the song, right? But when I only had 3 daughters, we would do the whole like the white dress and the red sash, and then like bring the cookies and stuff like that.
And then the wreath on the head with the candles and stuff.
Well, no candles. I was always a little hesitant on the candles. These 5-year-old girls, unpredictable in their movements and not very aware of like greenery and all that. But once we hit 5 daughters, I don't do it anymore. Sorry, it's too much fighting.
So this is a great segue, and because I control the levers of the show, I'm going to show it. Here is Trump. As we mentioned, time person of the year, but we love Italians and so does Trump. This just had me rolling this morning.
Then the message to Italy.
I love Italy.
That's my message to Italy. I love Italy.
Oh man,
so good.
Happy Friday. Me at Olive Garden. I love Italy.
You at the Olive Garden. Very good.
I love Italian food.
Oh man, dude,
I love
Trump
Italian women. I love
Italy. Okay, well, you know what? That helps get us into the show here. We had time person of the year, 2-time running, Donald J. Trump.
You know, there really was nobody else you were going to pick this year.
Apparently, Josh, they were considering Kamala Harris, which in reality would have been the funniest thing ever if they would have, after her losing, been like Kamala Harris, person of the year.
Well, what does it mean that they were considering it? I mean, who let that out? I mean, like the thing is, if she had been elected the first female president of the United States, she would have been the person of the year. Like that would have been a pretty big marker. the fact of the matter is Donald, and first of all, for me, I'm still old school. It's not that I'm misogynist. It's man of the year. I don't care if they change the person
It
of the
isn't,
year.
Josh.
It's still
not.
man. It's man of the year to me, and I don't care. I'm not going to listen to Time Magazine. You know what, though? I got to say, this is now the second, 2 times now that he's won it. I've only won it 1 time back in 2006. I'm really hoping to get another one in the bag here.
What?
Yeah, I was. Didn't you know? I won Time Magazine Man of the Year back in 2006.
Do I need to look up the cover?
Come on, bro. I'll get there one of these days. I mean, if Stalin can do it twice, so can I. So
Josh's oldest joke. Come on, Pogo. What was 2006?
I don't know.
Person of the year.
It's you.
The cover was a big mirror.
Oh,
no, it's a computer.
Oh my
It was a
gosh,
computer.
That's so dumb.
Oh, a computer. It was like you.
That's so dumb.
It was lame. It was a cop out. But Mercer will use it until the day he dies. He'll be on his deathbed being like, but I was person of the year.
Oracle of Petoskey, Time Man of the Year.
All right.
Let's keep it moving.
But I mean, like, honestly, as we were talking about in the election coverage, the fact that he pulled off this upset upon upsets. I mean, you have to remember, obviously, 13 days left in his first presidential term, with the disgrace of the January 6th riot that went out of control. The people that were put in prison for like crazy terms, I'm not justifying that. I believe most of them should be pardoned. Okay, but I'm saying it was embarrassing, kind of disgraceful moment. Part of it was that Twitter took, the previous ownership took his video down when he said, "Stop, go away, break it up." Social media, they're a bunch of liars. So, but the fact of the matter is, he was impeached again a second time. The only person to ever be impeached a second time with 13 days left in office. And he turns that around. And not only does Ron DeSantis was riding so high after the midterm elections. I mean, he won the first election as, governor, by the tiniest margin. I mean, barely.
Half a point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And then he comes back 4 years later, and Republicans ran through Florida in a triumphant victory. He was riding high. And but he didn't get there. I remember thinking, Trump was just he put his head down. He put those videos together where he reached to the audience. He understood it was a different kind of campaign. He won the primary. It was a contested primary, and he won it the easiest that anyone has ever won a contested primary. And I remember thinking the summer before, it was already over. And then he goes on to win. I mean, again, they threw everything at the kitchen sink. They put him in jail. He spent weeks fighting.
2 assassination attempts.
Tried to kill him twice.
He got his mug shot. Yeah, assassination attempts twice. And then he still pulls off and he didn't win in a whisker like he did the last time in 2016. He won pretty decisively. It's I don't know what the final totals are, but he's won by 1.7% or something like that. It was a solid victory, not a landslide, but a decisive victory. And he won all 7 of the swing states, and it's amazing to see. So he deserves it. I mean, it's not like it's a.
Sorry, what do you have to say, Erica?
I was just going to say, it's not just about winning the election, too. I think that in addition, and the fact that he defeated not 1, but 2 Democratic nominees, right? We've got Joe Biden. I mean, they were willing to take down the Democratic process and ride roughshod over it and put Kamala Harris up to try to take this guy down. And the whole campaign was, he's a fascist. He's evil. I mean, they had everything on their side and they still lost. But not only that, as soon as he was elected, we started seeing changes globally in behaviors from foreign governments, leaders of world powers. They started changing their behavior. We saw changes in behavior from, I will talk about this later, Bezos, Zuckerberg. We've got he is already effectively
huge ripple effects,
changing the narrative. And that is, so not only did he win, but in winning, he's proving the force of the Trump movement. He's no longer just an aberration, but he has proven he is a movement that's here to stay and has power even before he takes office. So I think it was the obvious
very true, Erica.
A couple observations about this Time article. One, as Josh mentioned, Joseph Stalin has won it twice. Actually, nature is healing. Taylor Swift won it last year with a cat picture. Trump's back. However, Time doesn't always.
She was a cat lady, literally.
Time doesn't always do these as kind of positive profiles. And I read through the article. I would not necessarily consider this a positive profile. I did the due diligence of reading the 2020 People of the Year, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. much more favorable review, of course. But one part that really stuck out to me was this 72 days.
Before we get into that real quick, yeah, your point for the audience, it's not necessarily meant to be an honorific title. It's like whoever had the biggest impact on the news. So.
Right. They put Stalin in the 1930s, but rightly so. He had the biggest impact.
Right,
but
because exactly, impact-wise. And you see their editorial nature. But I also think Trump is incapable of taking an iconic picture. Where's my favorite?
You're saying he's incapable of not taking
taking iconic.
Taking iconic.
Kissing of the flag from the Republican National Convention. I loved.
All right,
that's what he did. Yeah.
I'm going to leave this on the screen as I read the 72 Days of Rage. Okay, I thought this was probably stuck out the most in the article. Trump had a ready explanation for his improbable resurrection. He even has a name for his climactic final act. I call it 72 Days of Fury, he says. And an interview got underway. We hit the nerve of the country. The country was angry. I wasn't just talking MAGA faithful. Trump harnessed deep national discontent about the economy, immigration, and cultural issues. His grievances resonated with suburban moms and retirees, Latino and Black men, young voters and tech edgelords. While Democrats estimated that most of the country wanted a president who would uphold the norms of liberal democracy, Trump saw a nation ready to smash them, tapping into a growing sense that the system was rigged.
Nailed it.
In this Time article, they even showed Trump's changing coalition. I mean, I've seen this in many different forms. Every time I see it, it surprises me, especially when you look at Latino men coming from his 2016 defeating Clinton, being plus 31 Democrat. Visual. Latino men moved 41 points to the right, plus 10, 2024. That is just an outrageous.
Since 2016, that's what this is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Everywhere moved. I mean, voters of color, no degree, 26 to Trump. Latino women, 25 to Trump. Voters of color, college degree, 17 to Trump. I mean, just really the only places he lost ground were rural, which he lost 3 points of momentum, which is like nothing. White women.
Margin of error on that, yeah.
White women, no degree. He lost by 1 point.
No, these are still plus gains. These are still plus gains.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. White men, no degree, lost by 8 points.
That was
8 points.
Yeah, that one I'm actually a little kind of, okay, what can we do?
White women, college degree, lost 10 points on that one.
No shock there.
And then white men,
those
college
educated
degree,
women.
He lost 12.
So we just got to start taxing college degrees.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting parts of this article. I mean, as you guys are saying, the political comeback, of course. They talked about how he came to his abortion stance. They talked to how he came to his early voting stance. The RFK Jr. endorsement I thought was funny. Basically, he didn't want the sugar high to last after the DNC, so he said, what can we do? Brought over RFK, said, do you want to lose or do you want to actually do something in the country? And that one worked pretty well.
Love it.
Well, they stepped on Trump during his convention. So, you know, like this is the thing. Like I really, truly believe this. 90% of the time when there are unwritten rules or mores or customs and they get broken, 90% of the time they're broken by Democrats. And I'm being generous because it's probably like 99. It's probably like 105%, honestly.
Yeah.
So this idea that, you know, we each have a political, you know, each party has a political convention. You know, basically your job is when it's your opponent's convention, you shut up and you don't make news. But then they stepped on Trump during his thing, because then there was the whole controversy whether or not, you know, Biden would, you know, this or that. And it was just like, what are you doing? You're totally stepping on on Trump's.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's like, so I figure Trump's like, oh, you're going to do that to me?
I'll grab RFK right after your convention.
Exactly.
I'll raise you one.
What's the Mad Men quote, Erica? Says Don Draper maxim, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation.
That's right.
And that's a bar. But speaking of changing the conversation, if you want to change the way that you experience mobile in general.
Yeah, we talk to your family, your friends. Yeah.
Logo. Let's do it.
Let's change the conversation. Talk some Charity Mobile, okay? It's a pro-life phone company. And when you switch to a pro-life phone company, 5% of your monthly plan price goes to the pro-life, pro-family charity of your choice. No extra cost to you. We're talking about the easiest way possible to support a pro-life charity is just, you don't even think about it. You give it to your phone bill. You know it's going to something good. You get to help out good causes. You feel good. I feel good. We feel good. It's going to be great. Same nationwide coverage as the major carriers. Charity Mobile has a variety of plans to fit every need, from basic talk and text options to unlimited data, and you can get up to 8 lines. They offer a range of phones, from simple flip phones. I don't know, flip phones are kind of back, low-key.
Yeah,
I would do that.
They're trending.
I actually would love to do a flip phone. I've talked about it often.
They don't let me get one.
to the latest 5G smartphones, and you can bring your own compatible device. Plus, there are no contracts, no termination fees, and a 30-day guarantee, so there's no risk in giving them a try. Hey, Christmas is around the corner. You want to change it up? Want to be charitable? Think Charity Mobile. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's episode. If you want extra benefits, use code LOOPcast, promo code LOOPcast at CharityMobile.com. By the way, you believe. Thanks, Charity Mobile. Appreciate it.
You know, and you could, one of the charities you could even select could be the Catholic Vote Education Fund. Just
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 a little
keep the whole thing rolling. It's
circle,
just, come
great
on.
circle of life. I love it. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the flip phones, Pogo. We have a piece coming out in Refine. For those of you who don't know Refine, it's our lifestyle media outlet. So check it out, refinelife.co. Make sure you subscribe. You can get these great articles. But we have one coming out about the trending dumb phone by the great Rachel Kalaki, who is an amazing writer.
Actually, she is fellow Ave Maria alumni. I know.
Yeah, fellow Ave. She's a great writer, and she went through this new trend of the dumb phone and how she and her husband made the switch. So again, check out refinelife.co. It's great for if you need a little elevation in your consumption of the screen. It'll be great. And
now let me add on to that pitch. If you like Erica, just go check out Refine, right? Yeah. Erica, you don't have to be coy. This is you. You are Refine.
I am the managing editor. I am charged with executing the great vision of a team of wonderful people. But yeah, it's a fun time with me and my friends.
Yeah, that email comes out 3 times a week, right? So go to refine.co.
In the chat.
Amen to that. So Erica, you mentioned Zuck, and I actually want to, this is something I didn't even look up because I just want to hear what Josh has to say about it. So Meta has now donated $1 million to the Trump inaugural fund. They're not alone in this. Bezos, Amazon has donated as well. Josh, what is an inaugural fund in general? I don't even know what this is.
Yeah, I mean, so the president, when he gets sworn into office, there's going to be lots of different festivities. I mean, there's like 100 over the course of the city of Washington. I've been to a few, and usually the president of the United States makes an appearance at like 3 or 4 or 5 of these, but there's still like tons of these festivities, and there's all sorts of pomp and circumstance. There's a lot of expenses that go to it, and like the idea is like the taxpayer doesn't really want to have to pay for these, so the inaugural committee is this way to try to ingratiate yourself to the incoming administration and help underwrite a lot of these parties and festivities. So
gotcha. So what does this mean then to you? Do you see this as kind of sucking up to the new administration? Do you think there's been actual change, or is this just kind of?
I mean, yeah, I absolutely do consider it sucking up or zucking up, as the case were. I do think it's kind of his. Everything's going on with Mark Zuckerberg. Very interesting. I mean, like 2 years ago, he had that short haircut. He looked like Commander Data on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Well, he still might be a lizard. We don't know.
Well, he's got like the little perm thing going with the curls, and and then he had the one photo where he was wearing a tuxedo and he's holding an American flag and like he's surfing, and like he went from like the nerd to the guy who's going to try to go for your girl. So go for it, buddy. It's kind of interesting.
He wants to be a Chad.
I think he realized it's like, Twitter changed to X, and, a lot of the boomers that are the natural audience for Facebook now, not all of them are liberal, actually more of them are conservative inclined, and you don't really want to upset 40 to 50% of your base. So he kind of, that's why he last year was talking about, I kind of regret that we were a little too compliant with the FBI and all that other kind of stuff. And so, hey, there's some people that when someone makes a concession like that, they yell and attack them. And I like to say, hey, thank you for realizing you did something very wrong and evil. Come on in. The water's warm. Like you can begin the process of celebrating freedom. We love converts. So I don't trust them any more than I could throw, my arms, but hey.
Well, Josh, speaking of traitors to the country, Chris Wray is out.
Oh, yeah. Good riddance. Don't let the door hit you.
Some people were speculating he wouldn't resign. And what I've found
out basically make Trump fire him.
Who is Chris Wray for the peeps?
Okay. For the peeps, let me give a little bit of rundown.
Set the stage and then we can go.
Republican
FBI Director Chris Wray, I believe, is appointed by Trump. right?
Well, he's been a lifer. He's been involved in different agencies or whatever. So,
Right, but
he's
Josh appointed to the head of the FBI.
He replaced Comey, right?
that's right. He was
Right.
picked by Trump.
Picked by
and
Trump.
He later regretted it.
Chris Wray, his legacy will be us finding out that the FBI was spying on Catholic churches because a whistleblower came out with it. His legacy will be weaponizing the FACE Act to go after pro-lifers, specifically guys like Mark Houck or raiding houses. Probably his largest legacy outside of Catholics will be the decision to raid Mar-a-Lago.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
that was a absolutely disgraceful day in American history. But I think back to us finding out that Biden also had classified documents laying around his garage. And Josh, you talked about smashing norms. I listened to Kash Patel talk about this. Like, it is the norm for presidents to keep documents from the White House, to the point where Bill Clinton, again, had something in his sock drawer. It went to the Supreme Court. And yes, if you declassify documents, you could take them to your home. So, of course, this was done as a show.
It's interesting that Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard both are the opinion that perhaps maybe we just have way too many documents that are, quote, top secret. Like,
Right.
maybe
I'm of that opinion too.
Readjust how we look at this.
So I was listening to an interesting thing too, and I think Kash Patel will be big on this, but they talk about one of the biggest changes needed to start gaining the American people's trust back is to create a declassification office where it's the entire purpose of someone's job just to be there next to the president when the president says, hey, I want this to be declassified. Now you need to go fight people to make it happen. Because what ends up happening, and this is kind of a subtle way that the deep state undermines the will of the president, is the president will be like, hey, I want this. And they'll be like, okay, we'll have that done in a couple months because we have to do this and this and this and this. And then, okay, a couple months roll by. Being the president's pretty busy. Either you forget about it or you get an update and they're like, well, we needed to redact X, Y, and Z for American national security.
Yeah, they slow the roll.
Yada, yada. And they just stonewall. And then by that time, either you're at midterms or you're out of office. And so that's why having someone in the FBI seat that, of course, the ultimate irony is that Trump's going to weaponize the Department of Justice. I don't know how it can become any more weaponized than it already was.
Under Chris Wray.
Another thing, though, that doesn't get enough of a mention, too, is that a lot of these people, like Christopher Wray, now he's resigned or whatever, he's still going to have top secret clearance. And there's a ton of people who are no longer in office. They're no longer serving in these roles. And they maintain, like we're talking hundreds, thousands of people that have all this access to these top secret documents. And of course, they go on to different jobs and do other things. And so they're able to basically sell their access because I still have clearance. And so you want to hire someone who has that kind of clearance. It's just like, how is it even? It's one of the things where like American people, when they find out about it, like, wait, what? Like, why do we allow this to happen?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Eric, any thoughts on Chris?
Don't let the door hit you on the way out. It's the first thing that came to mind. Like you said, his legacy is absolutely shameful. And I think 100 years from now, when people are writing the history of the Trump years, he is going to be one of the chief villains, him and Merrick Garland. I remember, so I was covering his testimony to Congress in 2022, 23, and just evasive, refusing to take any kind of any ownership of his decisions and kicking the can down the line. And I think one more thought, his treatment of whistleblowers in general. Mm-hmm. We had like Marcus Allen, who's up for Hero of the Year with us, Kyle Serafim, obviously. And there were multiple other whistleblowers who were trying to get the message out through legal means that they legitimately had access to, and just the way they were treated. This might be true of all FBI directors, but the way they were treated under Chris Wray was just shameful. And I hope restitution is given to them under Kash Patel quickly.
Yeah, it's the hope that these agencies would stop becoming so self-serving, and the agents forum and the directors like this. Yeah. The idea that, like, why do we have an FBI? We have an FBI so that we can prosecute people who do like bank fraud or commit, federal crimes across state borders. Exactly. It's not to spy on Catholics. It's not to throw pro-life grandmas who pray, rosaries in jail. Like, what in the world are you doing? And then, and oversight is natural. We want to make sure we have oversight on federal law enforcement agencies so they don't get out of hand. we have questions like this. Like, you raided Mar-a-Lago, and then like the Secret Service, like they can't even protect Donald Trump. I mean, like, so we have a right to ask, like, what the heck is going on here? And typical, bureaucratic mindset where it's like, what I should have to answer. I don't have to answer to you. And they use these vague, passive words like, "Oh, mistakes were made," or this or that.
Well, Josh, on that front, one of the big contesting points that people had with the FBI was, were there informants in the crowd of January 6th?
Yeah.
And
we're going to find that out very soon, aren't we?
So that, Politico comes out, they're like, no. FBI didn't deploy undercover agents on January 6th. Watchdog report finds undercutting conspiracy theories. And it took, 1, 2 paragraphs, 3 down to say, 26 people served as informants for the FBI in there, known as confidential human sources.
Oh my goodness.
So kind of opposite of what the headline said. I mean, Politico and the Washington Post are, the worst ciphers for bureaucrats who just want to, affect and change the news. I mean, like they're absolute, stenographers for the deep state. It drives me up the wall, and you can't expect to get the actual truth here. And that's why, like, all the hubbub over the last 3 or 4 days, as you pointed out, Tom, against Pete Hegseth was just an attempt by the military industrial complex to sink his nomination. Like the whole controversy over West Point that blew up, and they're like, Pete Hegseth kept bragging about that he, got accepted to West Point, but he never did. West Point said he never did. It's like, and then we find out, he had the letter. He got accepted. If he hadn't kept that letter, the story of the last 3-4 days would have been like Pete Hegseth was lying about his resume. Exactly. He needs to withdraw. That's blah 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 blah. And then, but this again, this is what drives me crazy. It's like, okay, so the government lied to you. Like the West Point, PR department lied to ProPublica
twice.
Oh, okay. So everyone's like, well, why didn't you write that as a story? Like, you were hoping to get the story that this guy was never accepted, and you were about to run with that story until Pete Hegseth caught wind of it and nuked your story with the truth. Why aren't you talking about the actual story now that a bureaucrat lied to you? They're like, wow, this, honest to God, the reporter said, if I wrote stories about every time government lied to me, I'd spend half my time on that. And everyone on Twitter and online are like, why don't you do that then?
Yes,
if we have government consistently lying to us, I don't know. Here's an idea a reporter could do. Report on it, for the love of all that is holy. These people drive me up the wall. Like, isn't that news?
They're like, no.
It's not that big of a deal. I don't know. I think our government consistently lying to us is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
But,
Josh,
that's
what caffeine this morning.
So when the Republicans get mad at the reporters and the press, the reporters are always like, hey, excuse me, we have to hold it in the free press. We have to hold people accountable. Apparently not. Apparently it's only to attack Republicans. But when the government lies to you, no biggie. Give me a break. These people drive me up the wall. It's almost like they're lying. This is what was that video that we showed like 2 weeks ago? Wait, all the Democrats talking about Trump and how he's going to disrupt everything and he's going to be a threat to democracy. Of course, that's not really what's going on. We know that Trump is a threat to our bureaucracy, not to our democracy.
Our bureaucracy. That was a great
video.
Swap
it out.
Props.
Right, Erica, do you have anything you'd like to add to
I mean, after that, I feel like I'm covered. But yeah, that reporter, like, it was fun to watch all of the legit reporters online, like Mary Margaret Olohan, Tim Carney, and like, I don't know, a couple other, John Schweppe. Like they're reacting to this as the reporter from Politico being like, yeah, it wasn't really a story anymore. And their reactions, it were just priceless. I'm like, and this is why I follow you guys for my information.
So to follow this up, and I'm not going to be able to reach the decibel levels that Josh were able to reach. For those that missed this or whatever, Pete Hegseth is being nominated for Secretary of Defense. There was a reporter from ProPublica who wanted to get a gotcha on Pete Hegseth to try to fact check the claim, hey, I got accepted into West Point. And so he contacted the Department of Defense, West Point, and basically said, hey, did he actually get accepted into West Point? And West Point 2 separate times said, no, we have no record of that. That's not true.
Twice.
And if he would have just left it at that, it would have been fine to me. But he waited until an hour before he was going to publish an article saying, hey, Pete Hegseth is lying. He never got accepted. The DOD said that. What would you like to say back? And within that hour, credit to the press team of Pete Hegseth, they sent back the letter. They're like, well, no, ruh-roh, Raggy. We have the letter right here, and this isn't true. And so what's funny about all this was Pete Hegseth said, hey, this is what's coming. They were going to write this hit piece, but this is how it fell apart. And the reporter from ProPublica, who he then gets on, this is the part that was funny to me, because it could have just ended there, right? You could have just been like, story fell apart.
Story,
whatever, no story. The reporter from ProPublica comes on and he says, hey, this is what actual journalism is. It's I sent out the email to them. They said this, and then I contacted the other side. Don't get mad at me. This is real journalism. And that is, to me, the most outrageous part of this is claiming somehow that getting lied to by West Point twice was not newsworthy enough to publish. So he said, my decision not to publish the story was true journalism. Yeah. And my instant response is, true journalism would be, hey, the government just lied to me twice.
Okay.
But you didn't go to a fancy journalisming school, so
true. I don't have Big J.
But we're forgetting the other piece of this. You got one piece of it you covered right. The other piece, though, it's not like there's an obvious deadline. Okay, so he's looking into whether or not Pete Hegseth was lying about getting into West Point, right?
Yep.
And it's not like the Senate vote is in 3 hours, and so therefore he's got to hurry and let the senators know he's been lying about this major thing. Why would he only give Pete Hegseth's team 1 hour? 1 hour? Really? You couldn't give them 8 hours? No one, you're the only one that's pushing the story. It's not like, oh my gosh, we have to hurry. 1 hour? You're giving this guy 60 minutes to respond. I mean, he could be in the middle of an interview, a Joe Rogan interview for 2 hours, and it gets out what happened?
I can answer.
Right.
It's because they already have the story written, and they just want the opportunity to say, we contacted this person.
We're going to destroy you in an hour. Yeah.
By the way, Catholic Vote does not do that kind of garbage. When we are our team reporters, it's absolutely shameful.
It's Taylor Lorenz journalism. Okay.
The guy's name is Jesse Eisinger, by the way, and he's a Packers fan.
Oh, no wonder, dude.
It's in his bio.
No wonder.
Fun.
I'm not going to throw that on you, Carlos, if you're listening.
Yeah, we have a couple adamant Packers fans.
Hi. Sorry, Carlos.
Okay, next section.
Tried. I didn't do the cheap.
Next section here. So there's a little bit of Catholic Church controversy rolling around these days, and
no, not in the Catholic Church.
Not in the Catholic Church.
We're so united.
So a familiar name to some, Cardinal Cupich.
Cupich.
Cupich?
Yep.
So not like Cupid.
No, not a Cupid.
Wow.
Don't go there. It's Cupich.
Cardinal Cupich. Cardinal Cupich. Cardinal of Chicago.
Yeah.
And he stirred some controversy by saying that people should no longer kneel when receiving communion. And I'm going to give a direct quote from his article. We should do the direct quote. Certainly, reverence can and should be expressed by bowing before the reception of Holy Communion, but no one should engage in a gesture that calls attention to oneself or disrupts the flow of the procession. That would be contrary to the norms and tradition of the Church, which all faithful are urged to respect and observe.
That's so weird that he suddenly likes that.
Yeah, exactly. Tradition is now what? Good. Okay, so just to be super clear on how this whole thing has exploded on Twitter. So he posts this letter with what you just read. So you shouldn't interrupt the procession. You may bow before you receive. He doesn't explicitly say, this is how these people operate. He doesn't explicitly say no kneeling to receive communion, but his very helpful friend, Austin Ivory, gets on Twitter immediately and interprets for us what the good cardinal means. Yeah. And what the good cardinal means, says Austin, important letter from Cardinal B. Cupich against fashion of some people throwing themselves down or kneeling when receiving communion. I've never seen anyone throw themselves down. I've been around a lot of masses, never seen that.
He's so hysterical. Give me a break.
This was Austin's very helpful And here's what the cardinal means. Stop kneeling to receive communion. And probably not on the tongue either. That's so ostentatious. And then, of course, everyone picks this up. So again, Cardinal Cupich can still step back and say, I didn't say no kneeling. I didn't say it. But we know what you mean. He says, Eucharistic procession. And the irony, too, I read the whole letter, and it's all about how processions are such an important synodal expression of the people of God who are one and who become the body of Christ when we take communion. It's very Pope Spirit of Vatican II. He's like, processions. Well, do you remember what he said about Eucharistic processions last summer in Chicago? He said they were political stunts. He said that they were politicized expressions of like a certain traditional Catholicism. And now all of a sudden it's all processions during Mass or something.
But he's gonna lecture us on traditions of the church.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wish for Cupich.
Quoting Vatican II to us.
I think what I would like for him most would be to shut up.
There he goes.
And number 2 would be to retire.
So
He
Josh,
could have a very
this
nice retirement.
for those who forgot as well, this went around too. He said that it was a political process and that he didn't want Eucharistic. He was embarrassed that it was coming through Chicago, that it wasn't enough focus on serving the poor, whatever. I can't remember the exact, but then he basically was forced into doing the Eucharistic procession, the one that went around the entire country during Eucharistic revival. And this is a 4-4-40 of going around the corner. This is the fastest and most haste I've ever seen a priest do a Eucharistic procession. He's like sprinting around this corner. So not a great track record. But I'm just curious too. So then that brings up a broader question. Is kneeling during communion, like I think most people here would say that it is reverent and the posture assumes reverence and things like that. But what tradition are we drawing upon here? Does he have a point? Is this actually tradition of the Catholic Church or not?
Well, let me get to what I'd like to say about this, which is to say there are a lot of Catholic faithful in the United States who wish we had more reverence during the celebration of the Mass. And we don't like it that everything just becomes, the music is so bland, the architecture is so garbage and yucky, and everything is just sort of like matter of fact and get up and receive communion, blah, 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 like it's no big deal. And we're begging our priests and our bishops to show more reverence. Like this really is the body of Jesus Christ. It's not just bread. It is our Lord. It is our Savior. And so like we wish people would not go up like, oh, big deal. Like, it used to be like, 50, 60 years ago, people would, a lot of people wouldn't go up to receive because they felt like they were not worthy enough. They were maybe, especially if they're in a state of mortal sin or if they're but if they just weren't in the right disposition, they were like, I just don't think I present yourself. Well, if you do that now, people look at you like, what the heck is with this guy? Like, what are you doing? Like,
are you a sinner?
Thanks. Yeah. Like, what's wrong with him? And so like, the idea of trying to like, make it understand the moment, to be solemn and reverent of it. There's people who yearn for that. And I remember, I usually go to, the regular old Nervous Oda Mass, as it's like to be said. But I've gone to the traditional Latin Mass, and I've been to a church with kneelers, and it's like, it seems so much better. It seems much more reverent. And actually, it kind of wakes you up like
that's God. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's just like what this document from Cupich really tells me is that he and a lot of his ilk have just like this itchy reaction to people who want more reverence. And they look down on us with disdain. And I find him to be pitiful. Just
thanks for watching your language today.
I think someone in our Slack channel internally this morning was like, if you're a Catholic bishop and you find yourself embracing liturgical dancing, which he does, and at the same time you have an allergic reaction to Eucharistic processions or people kneeling to receive communion, maybe you should ask yourself, is it me? Like maybe there's something weird about a Catholic bishop having trouble with that. But this is, I think, the desire for more reverence, and we've talked about abuses of the Eucharist before, and having to like call people out during Mass, even because you see them like take the host and run away with it. Yeah. I mean, one of the pros of returning to kneeling to receive on the tongue is that it's much harder to steal the Eucharist or to abuse it or to just like have people come visiting for one Sunday and be like, oh, I'll just go take the cookie that they're all taking, because it's more clearly set apart. And I forget what the other point was I want to make. So,
well, let me make one way you think about
reverence.
that. Like one of the things I tell my kids, like, yes, receive on the tongue, because you know it just helps to remind you that this is the Lord, to have a little bit more reverence for it. It really, you know, in the ideal world, it's really only those whose hands are consecrated that would be, you know, touching the Eucharist, our Lord. The other thing I do is I tell my kids, do not receive both species. For the ordinary Sunday Mass, you should just receive the body. And the church is like, no, both. I'm like, actually, no, thank you. Why do we have to always change everything? It used to be that you would only receive the blood on feast days.
Like high holy days, right?
Yeah, on the high holy days, like Pentecost, Christmas, you know, great solemnities. And again, that's what my family's doing. And the reason why we do that is just to, again, remind ourselves, like, this should not just be a normal, like, everyday run of the mill, go up there, da da da. We're talking about Jesus Christ. We're talking about receiving him. We're making sure that we are of the proper mind, body, and soul to receive his precious body. So
it's the greatest thing on earth. I remembered my other point. May I? Do I have time?
Go for it. Yeah.
So the other point that Cardinal Cupich makes throughout this letter is about how it's not about us. It's not about individualism. It's about, we do everything in communion, in communio. But and so he wants our processions to just be like, bow, receive on the hand. Okay. I understand the point. It's a valid point when it comes to Catholic praxis and the law of prayer and the law of belief. However, it is neglecting the fact that we are not just in communion with the 140 people with us at that Sunday Mass. We are in communion with every Catholic who has ever been back to St. Peter and the apostles, right? And the practice of the church up until, yesterday, being in the eyes of the church, it was yesterday, was that you would kneel and receive on the tongue with great reverence. We are in communion with St. Therese. We're in communion with St. Francis Xavier, St. Gianna. We're in communion with St. Catherine of Siena. We're not just conforming ourselves to the spirit of the age and the spirit of Vatican II, which is an abuse, I think, of Vatican II, but we're conforming ourselves to the entire body of Christ. And that included a lot of kneeling, Cardinal Cupich. And I would like to be part of that communion of saints and not just like, too much reverence, people standing out.
But for as much as they like to say we are, the traditionalists are the ones who are judgy, like, really? Like, like when you see a homeschooling mom, 35 years old, who kneels, and someone like Cupich just want to spit nails, they get so angry. It's like,
she's so
kind of like it's on you, maybe, bro. Maybe you're the problem.
So I have 3 points. One,
it's very optimistic of you.
The synod continues to be the gift that keeps on giving, because wouldn't true synodality, synoodling, be, hey, we notice that a lot of people kneel when they receive. Shouldn't we ask why they do what they do instead of make snap judgments about them being, quote,
share their experience
or disrupting the flow of whatever? Wouldn't true synodality and walking with my lived experience be asking me, not in judgment? So therefore, all the synod people are total frauds.
Total fraud.
It's the most obvious and easy point of all time. It's like they just love dropping hammers on people and not asking questions, but then synoodling with people that they like. So there's number one. Number two, they're wrong. He's wrong in the flow. Actually, the reason why churches were designed the way that they were with altar rails is because it's faster. Because if you kneel down in a line, then the priest can go down the line, you can receive reverently, and then you can have patent under your mouth, and then it happens quick. What happens now, which is absolutely bizarre and an abuse, in my opinion, with extraordinary ministers, where they think that just handing out all these, which is supposed to be in rare cases, by the way. It's not supposed to be universal as it's been currently utilized, which is completely debatable. But now they just send out all these Eucharistic ministers. The flows don't make any sense. And everyone can now do different things, whatever.
And we're so worried about efficiency.
So if he's really concerned about efficiency, the kneeling and altar rails would actually be the most efficient. So he's wrong.
Let's do a motion study, Cardinal.
And then number three, I don't know what church document he's referencing or the opponents of this are referencing, if you want to take a look at Redemptionis Sacramentum, sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing Latin, but hence any baptized Catholic who is not prevented by law must be admitted to Holy Communion. Therefore, it is not licit to deny Holy Communion to any of Christ's faithful solely on the grounds, for example, that person wishes to receive the Eucharist kneeling or standing. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not even like you're singling out the standing people or kneeling people, whatever, according to church documents. So on all three counts, wrong. So my thoughts on Cupich are, it astounds me that someone in a position of authority in the church, seemingly all of his public activity seems to hate in that which he represents. Yeah. Or at least denigrate, or at least at the very least be embarrassed. It feels as though he's embarrassed about Eucharistic processions, about people kneeling. Any show of reverence, as you mentioned up, kind of seems to make him uncomfortable to the point where he needs to make public statements against that. Again, it'd be one thing if he's just let live, but that's not what's happening here. I want to point that out. So something to me needs to change. It's outrageous. I'm trying to think of other industry examples of someone representing.
Imagine it. Sorry, imagine it. Imagine you had the owner of the Green Bay Packers say, "No one will be able to bring cheese, foam cheese heads,
no cheese heads at Packers."
And then they say, "You cannot wear green or yellow, the team's colors." It's like what? Like what? Do you hate? Do you not realize what you do here?
Well, actually, Josh, the then extra element of that is the owners then coming out and saying, "Hey, we're actually going to undergo this process. We're going to call it synodality. And we're actually going to walk with all of your lived experiences and ask you all the questions, make sure we walk with you, whatever." And then turning around, "Hey, no more colors at the stadium. Yeah. No more cheese at the stadium." Yeah. You're idiots.
No more tailgating, no more brats.
But that's my parish actually did coming up a couple weeks from now. They're like, because attendance is way down, and they're like, "We're going to ask people their opinions." I said, "Oh, really?"
Mercer's like, my
crack your
time
knuckles.
has come.
So we will see.
All right, before we're going to have a communal Twilight Zone experience on this one before we get into individuals. But before that, I've been tasked by, I believe, the marketing team. I was asked a really embarrassing question. It is, what phrases or things do you associate with yourself on the podcast?
Yeah, we need taglines. 2
came immediately to mind for Josh, Oracle of Petoskey, and It's Almost Like They're Lying.
Yeah, he's got it easy.
I can't do it for myself. So if you guys humbly in the chat, if there's things that come to mind that you think of when you listen to one of us on the show individually, drop them in the chat. You are our most faithful live followers. We appreciate you so much. Leave them in there. It could be for me, Josh, or Erica. So you guys think on
yours
that.
Yours is easy.
What's that?
It's not that I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Well, speaking of, dude.
But I want to just second that. I am begging for help with this. I can't be creative when it comes to myself. So if you could please, I suggested Sweet Baby Gang, but Matt Walsh took it, and then
no, that would be authentic. Someone's like, go touch grass, Brett Cooper. I was like, no.
That's Brett Cooper.
And I was like, can I steal Jeb Bush's tagline? It's over, we're back.
It's over.
I already kind of have.
So. Actually, I
thought you were going to say, please clap.
I also stole that too. If you go over to my Twitter, I have both It's Over, We're Back and Please Clap. The Chiron of that is my favorite moments of politics, probably. Jeb Bush is a total gem.
Yeah. You probably can't do White Boy Summer. That's probably a little too edgy. Yeah, we don't want to go there.
I mean, it's
you're a little more mature than that.
We're actually in White Boy Winter right now, so.
Pogos, and we're live. I like that. All right,
and we're live. Okay. All right, keep it going. So communal Twilight Zone experience. New Bruce Springsteen song dropped. Drones over New Jersey. What? I cannot believe what I'm reading here. And this is like dessert for this episode. I had to save it to the end. Okay. Guys, let's just brief summary of what we know. We don't know much. There are SUV size drones flying around New Jersey that we have cell phone footage of. Dozens of 12 cases at least proven right now. Yeah. Flying over critical infrastructure and military assets in New Jersey. I think specifically Langley Air Force Base. We don't know anything about them.
That's in Virginia. No, not Langley.
I think there is something called Langley in there.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my ignorance is showing. No, but it's not just New Jersey. Last night, did you see? They came out over Fairfield, Connecticut. There were more sightings. So now they're in my state.
Now, it'd be one thing if our trusty U.S. government would say, hey, this is us, right? This is the Pentagon doing training exercises, yada, yada. They don't know anything. So what we know right now.
They claim they don't know anything.
They claim to know nothing. I repeat, SUV-sized drones just flying all around New Jersey, zipping back to the Atlantic Ocean, coming back.
To the mothership.
I think like 12 mayors are saying, we want answers on this. We don't know what's going on.
People are flooding their congressmen's lines, being like, why are there these SUVs flying over? Not only that, not only are they flying around, but they're actually making intentional evasive moves when police helicopters approach them to try and figure out what they are. And they'll turn off all their lights in the middle of the night.
What are we doing here, guys?
Guys!
They're evading helicopters. We're sending our own drones after them. We can't even catch them. They're
recharging over the ocean somewhere. We don't know where. We have the most advanced technology in the world, supposedly the highest military grade operations.
Apparently we need some Texans on the Jersey shore to take care of this.
I know.
There
Tony
was just an
Soprano
FBI person just testified at a congressional hearing. We do not know what's going on.
Yeah.
Which maybe they do, right? So, okay, theories so far. Let's all get together in theories because there's no real answers to this, by the way, which is just insane. Iran is one theory. A representative of New Jersey said that I believe they said a drone mothership.
A mothership.
Left Iran and is unaccounted for right now, which seems a little suspicious to me. It's kind of like a Wuhan situation. Like we have a COVID lab and that might be where it's coming from. So Iran, possibility number one. Number two, China. Could be another spy balloon situation. Number three, this could be aliens.
It's aliens.
It could be.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
I think it could be.
Doesn't
you have
everyone
to put it on the
a
table.
little bit wish it's aliens? I mean, a little bit. We all want a star. Wait, so we're the worlds.
Could you imagine how I would be so freaked out. An SUV sized drone is so unbelievable to me. Here's for you guys to see. This is someone in New Jersey, Nicole Sapier.
Yeah.
Look at this thing.
Oh man.
It's crazy. It's got different lights just flashing at you. Some people are saying there's stuff shooting out of them.
Yeah.
What?
And they're clearly directed by some intelligence. So this would be someone out on the mothership, maybe flying them around. There's clearly some kind of camera.
Now my boy Tony in the chat is
on.
saying no Iran or China. I don't believe you, Tony. What
Well, I don't think Iran.
I need
China I could see, but
Iran can't do anything right now. They're toast.
Although 4D chess, people might want us to think it's Iran for the Warhawks to go to war with Iran. So they might be using this advantageously.
Yeah.
The fourth option is the U.S. government, which is probably the most reasonable.
It's probably the most reasonable.
But the U.S. government is fighting with their own sheriffs.
This is just spy balloon 2.0. It's freaky, and the dismissiveness with which the FBI people are testifying on this. They're just we don't see it as a cause for concern. And I'm like, if it fell, if you shot it down and it fell on my house, it would kill us all. They're huge. It's not a cause for concern.
Not a cause for concern.
Oh my gosh, Kash Patel needs to get out there on his helicopter as soon as possible. Or
we need answers.
Do it. I don't know.
We need answers.
Pete Hegseth. I want to see Pete Hegseth shooting down drones.
Okay. Also, this is a fun one. We're going to run this one quick from the chat. Shout out Kate from the chat. Hello from Ohio. I've got a Christmas related question. Should you tell your kids Santa is real as a Catholic? Or just stick with the true stories of St. Nicholas and let Christmas be something that's entirely separated from what secular culture celebrates it as? It's a great question. Very hot button.
Erica.
I have so many thoughts.
Go for it.
Yeah. We don't tell our kids about Santa. This is how our family does it. It's just, to me, it is lying to your children. And I know that is going to make so many people upset in the chat.
Now
I have
own
this
it.
conversation with my friend, but my kids are the kids who tell their friends that Santa is actually dead. He died in 410 AD. And that, yeah. So sorry to all my friends who are listening and your children were made sad by the Ahern kids. But no, I just, there's so much wealth and richness in the St. Nicholas story and in the traditions of Advent and Christmas. I don't see the need for secular Santa and parents having to worry about secrets and making it look like he came and ate the cookies and all. And I get it. It's fun. It's a fun game. But at some point, your kid's going to find out. and there's that little break inside when they find out. So like, let's just go.
You know how I dealt with it though? I mean, I totally respect that, so I have no
Yeah.
problems with that. The way I did it would be, as the kids were getting older, I'd be like, do you want me to tell you what the answer? Because you may not like the answer. Are you sure? And like, so then they wait a little bit, and then, finally, okay, so what is it? Like, okay, here's the deal. And I told them the truth. And that was the way to kind of help it along. I mean, I in other words, at the end of the day, I'm just going to straight shoot with them on that. And because I always want them to know,
I'm a straight shooter with kids.
Dad is never going to lie to you. Like, I love you so much and I will tell you. And if I have to hold back, but like that, and that gets to everything else too, like when it comes to questions of, the reason why I want to try to establish that bond of trust is that when my kids have questions about human sexuality, I want them to go to my wife or to go to me. I don't want them to think, well, they weren't on the level with me on this other stuff. So it's like, whatever you do, don't Google, come to me, come to mom, or even our neighbor who, we're best friends with. So I trust them. They're in the circle of trust. Like, you can ask them. Because I just don't want it to ever be the case where, like, wow, I don't know if I can be. No, you can be forthright. I will tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think I see Kate in the chat saying, you homeschool. I assume you're talking to me. You homeschool. In a Catholic school, there's no keeping kids from other kids' stories about Santa. Right. And there's also in schools, and my kids are out in the world. We aren't just like at home. We have there are 400 kids in our homeschool, like, circles. And so, there's no keeping them from stories about Santa, but they've known forever that Santa's fake. And so, like, as 5-year-olds, they're like, oh, Santa brought you that? No, he didn't. Your dad did that.
Okay, so have you explicitly told them, like, hey, go burst people's bubbles?
No, I have not. No.
But
no,
you haven't discouraged it either, though.
Like their mom.
You haven't discouraged it either, apparently.
Because, so I'm in an interesting situation.
You need to be kind because these kids' parents are not. They're playing a game with their kids. And so I'm sure.
I'm in an interesting situation because, so my son is 2.5. And so... because I think intellectually, I'm just like, I see the merits of what you're saying, not having taboos, not lying. It also is very secular. So if you want to tell the real story of St. Nicholas, that's good.
We always do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To me, I don't know if I see like it being mutually exclusive, that you can still be festive and preserve childhood innocence and then also know the truth about Santa. Because it kind of reminds me a little bit of this new trend of Elf on the Shelf, which I hate. And I'm just like, someone just made that up, right? Like, that's not even, again, kind of consumerist too. Right? No tradition. I'm like, at one point, Santa was made up. And then now I feel like it's just kind of held together by this social bond of not wanting to ruin it for people who made that decision. Mm-hmm. But I feel like then you're kind of allowing your decisions to be dictated by you not wanting to ruffle other people's decisions. So I think I'm probably, and then also I think that there's, we got to wait. Santa isn't real from the chat. Of course, I knew that was coming. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble today. I think an underrated element of this too, and I guess this is a podcast, I do get personal, but my parents did Santa, although both they're wonderful, faithful Catholics. And so we had Santa, but I actually think that I want to, maybe it's just because I'm a selfish person. I was a selfish kid, but I always thought of like receiving stuff. And then with Santa, I never knew that it came from my parents, at least as a kid. And then when I grew up, I did. But I almost think I would have appreciated it more knowing that it was from my parents and that it wasn't from this magical whatever. And I think that if I knew it was from my parents and there was more of an emphasis, I want to do this. I'm not saying my parents did anything wrong. I'm saying I'm probably just a selfish person. I want to like really get across to my kids about Christmas. What's the true point of Christmas? Not that I ever didn't know that, but also this spirit of giving. And I think I consumed much more than I gave. And it was never on my mind to be like, oh, my parents are getting me this. They're giving me a gift to make me feel special or whatever. I should also partake in that thing, as opposed to like Santa just being kind of this amorphous, like I'm going to consume. And the older I get, the more nervous I get about like my kids kind of having that kind of self-centered and making, I don't know, I might be weird on this, but having kids cry about not getting stuff like in a bratty way is my nightmare. Like that actually just
Why would that be a nightmare?
The feeling that it gives my body is just like,
oh,
I just
you didn't get what
tense
you
up.
want. Boo-hoo. Welcome to life.
Welcome to life.
Life lessons. Sorry.
Exactly. So,
life sucks. Wear a helmet. Too bad.
All right, good tagline for Josh. Life sucks, you know.
Parenting 101 with Josh.
But yeah,
my wife always is like, "Were you raised by wolves?" Like, it's just thinks I'm so heartless, you know. Whatever.
Okay. Well, sorry I took a little extra time there. Do you guys want to run your Twilight Zones real quick?
Oh, if I have permission, I mean,
you do. Permission granted.
Okay, so I I'm not the biggest fan of Pope Francis, as you know, but there's an interesting article on how do you say it, Rorate Chile?
Is it Rorate?
Rorate.
And this guy wrote basically a little summary of what he thinks the College of Cardinals looks like, because the assumption here was with the latest consistory is going to be a whole bunch more liberals, and that the progressives were going to be guaranteed lock to have another catastrophically left-wing pope like we have. But the article goes through and it's like it's not really as bad as you think. I mean, there's some consistories that he had like in 16 or 17, where there's really was a significant move to the left. But the last few consistories have actually not been like overwhelmingly left, and there are some that are moderate and some that ended up being like almost conservative, and so again, the Lord works in mysterious ways. It's his church. It always is. So I read this article, and a lot of church watchers, asking, well, give me your thoughts on this. Is this, I don't want an article that just makes me feel good. I want to know if it's actually accurate. And they said, no, it's actually a pretty well written article. It does show signs of hope. I mean, some people are kind of, grousing, give me a break, just leave the Catholic Church, become Orthodox, or, oh, that guy isn't as conservative as this guy said he was. It's like, okay, I mean, you know what? The whole point of the article was that to kind of move away from the doom and gloom caucus, and it's not as bad as it seems. And in fact, it reminded me of this, another thing that someone posted an image of the restoration at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, and was like, it's not as good as it was before. And someone's like, dude, stop, shut up, and take the win. Like, yep. Is it completely immaculate and perfect? No. Do we have to fix a few things like the altar? Yes. But in large part, we won. Take the W. And so I just want to say, you know what? Because we're so concerned. We've had this experience in the West of the last 100 years of losing as the church and our society moves leftward. And we're not actually used to this new thing where we actually get some wins. And the whole thing is when you get a win and it's like you got 90% of the loaf, stop complaining about how it's not completely perfect. We use this analogy, well, one drop of poison, get over it. Like, take the win and build on the win, okay, people? So I think that's a good article. I thought, again, the Notre Dame thing, those are two things I wanted to kind of point out. And I would just, shifting gears here for a second, on the political front, we thought this guy was brain dead. John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, continues to surprise people.
He's great.
Announced his support for Elise Stefanik, who's a Jewish woman. She's a Republican congresswoman from New York, to be the new ambassador to the United Nations, which is a den of thieves and a bunch of people who hate Jews at that place.
Yep.
And so he supports his nomination. He's been pushing back at the super anti-Semitic caucus inside the Democratic Party. And John Fetterman's even said, he had a meeting with Pete Hegseth today to consider, and people are you going to are you going to consider voting for him? He's like, I'm having a meeting. That's what the meeting is. You meet people, like, basically just shut up. But what this tells me is John Fetterman realizes that Donald Trump won Pennsylvania by a bigger margin than he did Georgia. Okay. And I think Pennsylvania is going to drift red, and Georgia is going to drift blue. That is my concern. I think a lot of black Democrats in the North, they retire in Atlanta, and that city is going to become more and more blue as the state will also become more blue. That's going to you're going to have to fight for it. That's going to be they're going to plant their flag there in the Southeast. So watch out. But Pennsylvania has the potential to become a red state like Ohio is. So we'll see. And Fetterman is smart. I fear this guy. Like people are like, oh, he said something great. That awesome. Finally, a Democrat that's not a psycho. Yes, understand that he is still very left wing on many things. And he's hoping to do a few of these things to win you over so that he can become the nominee. He's the kind of Democrat who could do. I'm actually worried about this guy. You got to keep your eyes open for this guy. He's a threat.
The factory reset on Fetterman will be studied for generations.
Unbelievable.
100%. It's like his brain came back. There is healing. But yeah, I agree, Josh. I'm going to go with since we're doing Person of the Year, we had Time Magazine also had Athlete of the Year. And of course, we have Caitlin Clark here, prominent player in the WNBA. And, we covered her earlier in the year. She got a lot of flack from Black players saying things like, oh, she's just a pretty white girl and she gets so much media attention and we built this thing. And Caitlin Clark, she just kind of came across as someone who said, I just want to play the game. I'm just doing my best, and applaud her for that. Well, she decided in the last week or so, she went on some event and she's talking with a Black WNBA player, and she decided to take the knee, and she basically lay down and apologized for her white privilege, saying, I am here because of my privilege. It's Black players who laid the groundwork for this whole league, and they don't get any attention. And it's because I'm white. I'm, and beautiful and all that. She didn't say she was beautiful, but that's what they're saying. And my thought is, Caitlin, you're about to learn that no matter how much you apologize, no matter how much you adopt the language of DEI and the white fragility of Robin DiAngelo, it is never going to be enough. And they are going to continue to eat you alive. And I was so disappointed in whoever was advising her on this, or just maybe she caved to the pressure.
So I have an alternative take on this.
Can I say one more thing and then you can give me your alternative take? Thanks.
I'll go for it.
But I lost track of it. Go ahead. What's up?
I'm really sorry for that. It's someone in the chat says that they used to babysit her, Cassie, which is very interesting.
No way.
Probably an Iowa girl.
Well, maybe you still have an in with her and you can say something about it.
I think, while maybe disappointing on a principle, and she also used the language "my truth," which is enraging to me. She has to do this for survival.
Absolutely.
And I think she's operating in a league dominated majority of Black lesbians. She is a white heterosexual woman. However dominant she may be, if she doesn't go with like this whole, because the WNBA as a concept is so artificial. Like it's propped up by the NBA.
It's not propped up by Black women players. It's propped up by the male players.
100%. Like they're propped up by the NBA, and the league itself is full of many like intermarried, lesbian. Yeah. Like it's bizarre. Most Black players, if you want to go into that league and not get like slammed every night, you don't want to progress in the league, whatever. Like you have to kind of play by the artificial rules. And this is kind of her, I think, giving the least amount to them so that she can operate in this league. She's not able to if she does.
I agree. Let me just kind of accentuate what Tom's getting at to help people understand it. So like you would think having Time Magazine call you Athlete of the Year would be a wonderful thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. But for Caitlin Clark, it was like, oh no, crap. Right. Now everyone's like, all these Black players are going to be like, oh, we've been doing this for years. And suddenly you want it and you're white and you're just going to get the award. So it was basically, you just made her life miserable. What does it say about the culture of the WNBA that she would think to herself, oh, I wish they just wouldn't have given this to me? Like that, because she didn't say that, but that's essentially what's going on here. Yeah. And I had a friend who's a female athlete and knows a lot about this stuff. And she said, look, there are Christians or just regular, not even like overtly faith, but just straight women that get involved in basketball and they feel like they're run to the margins if they're not lesbians. And so there's that undercurrent, as you mentioned. So for her to survive, she had to pick two options. One was to totally take the knee, which is not the preferable option, or two would have been to just be kind of magnanimous and say, oh, no one listens to that kind of media stuff. Give me a break.
Right.
And just kind of distance yourself from it. And like, as if, you didn't deserve it, reject it. And come on, who listens to the, media stuff? What really matters is what happened on the court, and pretend like you're just marginalizing that. But you couldn't just be gracious and say, oh, thanks, that's very nice. Then they would have been like, you're right, attacking them. And so It's tough. It's a tough spot.
Well, or I
actually sympathize with her in a sense.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that she is very young, and she's probably, given the schools that she's gone to, she's probably absorbed some of this white privilege garbage and been like, yeah, that's, maybe she thinks there's some truth to it actually. But what the truth would actually be is to say, yeah, you know what, I am privileged. I grew up with a mom and a dad in the home. I grew up in a whole family, and I have Christian faith. That was my privilege. And I think that would have been, it would be great if she could get those. I mean, yeah, I think it is a survival mechanism, but it's deforming to the soul as a survival mechanism. At some point, you have to say, like Riley Gaines. Let's take Riley Gaines as an example, right? She knew that starting to campaign against Leah Thomas like that, and not against Leah Thomas personally, but against men and women's sports, she would be out of the sport, right? That she's out of the sport. But it was for a greater thing, and I hope that Caitlin can find that footing.
Josh, I feel like, Josh, we're both making a similar point outside of the principle and the philosophy and the morality point. Like, if you continue to live in something not the truth, it affects your soul. It affects you. And so, like, there's going to be detrimental effects to her personally for doing this. I was trying to think, even like a good example would be the NFL. We've had this kind of renaissance of white defensive backs. I'm not sure if you've seen this, like Cooper DeJean with Philadelphia. For the first time, there's another guy in Denver who's a white cornerback, and they're both having big years. And I was just thinking about kind of the similar way of like, and I just think it's different because the WNBA is so artificial that the NFL is not artificial. Its product is already established and it works based on proper economics. So if someone truly is dominant,
it's a meritocracy,
I don't think it really matters. It's much more of a meritocracy. Some, but not nearly to the extent, like, because the WNBA is so artificial, you have to play the artificial games because it's not really based on
the game itself isn't artificial. It's just that, they should be playing. They should be playing in like high school auditoriums is what it is, because they're not getting the crowds.
I understand. So what I'm saying with like the Cooper DeJean example of like being a good cornerback in Philly, him being a white cornerback, he doesn't have to bow or anything. It's like, I'm the best. I'm
okay. So we got to make sure we don't run over time. But before you get to your thing, just want to ask everyone to pray for Nancy Pelosi, who has been hospitalized. We obviously disagree with her on a lot of things, but she's overseas, a part of a congressional delegation to recognize the Battle of the Bulge, the 80th anniversary there. So she's in Luxembourg. She's been sent to the hospital. Wow. So obviously, and we talked about her in the Loop in the recent days about her kerfuffle with Archbishop Corleone. He asked people to pray for her just because of that fight anyway. But then obviously we want her to heal. And also, not to be just like super personal about it, she's 84 years old. Like, you can retire. Like, we should have it so that no one serves in office after the age of 80. Like, 80 is enough.
You got to go get right with God, people, after 80. So
yeah, anyway. I can't help but talk about within that whole dispute too of how close she is to potentially meeting her maker. Like, I think she one-upped Corleone and went to the Pope basically to try to win this fight over whether or not she can receive in San Francisco. And she can. She's just, the priests are instructed not to until she publicly repents. So yeah, this is all probably very much on her mind. Pray for Nancy Pelosi conversion of her soul. I have a quick one. Daniel Penny, national hero, just was invited by J.D. Vance to the Army-Navy game. They will be joining President Trump in the suite at the game. Tweet from J.D. Vance: Daniel's a good guy. New York's mob district attorney tried to ruin his life for having a backbone. I'm grateful he accepted my invitation. Hope he's able to have fun and appreciate how much his fellow citizens admire his courage. This is good leadership that I like to see from my politicians. So just a cool gesture. It's a special game.
JD. Let's do it.
All right.
Make him assistant director of the FBI while you're at
it. I say we erect a statue in subways across the country. I'm erecting statues. But hey, this has been a fun week of shows. Thank you guys for joining this Friday episode. Hope you guys have a great weekend. If you want to help us out, you can leave reviews, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can actually leave comments on Spotify now, so go ahead and comment. I do take a look at those. You can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. If you want to support the show, become a champion, catholicvote.org/champions, where you can find more information on that. It's the only way we're able to do what we do. So thank you so much to all of our champions. And thank you to our live chat viewers, live listeners. If you guys want to join that, 11 a.m.
We still need taglines, guys. We still
Monday,
need
Wednesday, Friday.
taglines.
Someone put some. We got a bunch in the chat, so we'll go through those. Thank you guys. Oh, for me?
I need some.
None for Erica? Guys, get on it. None for Erica, the queen of the podcast. Come on now.
Ooh, I like that. Queen of the pod.
Queen of the pod. We'll give you
All
that
right.
one.
All right, thanks.
But I hope you guys have a great weekend. Pray for us. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. And we'll see you guys on Monday.